So the yearly list of possible paid shills by big biotech, big pharmaceutical industry has recently come out, and yours truly is actually on it. I guess that means you could say I've officially leveled up?
Shill powers, engage!
What's up everybody, Jeff Holiday here. Cheers to you and cheers to me. I'm so happy I could be part of the troll list. I am, I guess, officially an actual shill for Big Pharma, but wanting to make sure that all of my clients, as they were, get their equal amount of time and support because, as everybody knows, I'm getting paid oodles and oodles of Monsanto and pharmaceutical bucks for this. I figured that I should go back and revisit an old video of mine and redo it. For those of you familiar with the older videos on my channels, you might remember this young man.
Hello, I'm Jeff Holiday. I'm bringing you another video. This time I'd like to talk to you about logic.
So young, so innocent. So because the quality of that video obviously was not nearly up to the superior quality that I have now with my awesome new intro and flashy graphics, I figured that it would be about time that I do Logically Thinking About GMOs Part 2, Logic Harder. So this Saturday, there's going to be a large number of people all across the world in various different cities and states who are all going to be banding together to march against Monsanto. And these people are doing this not because simply they dislike Monsanto, but because they're afraid of biotechnology. Sad state of affairs is that when people say that they want to march against Monsanto, a lot of times it's kind of a smokescreen for marching against something that they don't quite understand. A lot of this is because people have an inherent fear of biotechnology. To many people, biotechnology represents a certain type of playing with God mentality. And in fact, they get so worked up about this sort of thing that they will rigorously defend against it. You'll have people who will swear off life-saving, proven technologies simply because it sounds scary to them and they don't understand. So when we break it down, if we're going to march against Monsanto, what are we really marching against? Are we marching against Monsanto? Well, some people might be, but for the most part, people are marching against GMOs. And what's insane about this entire idea is that people who are marching against GMOs don't even understand what GMOs actually are. And they don't even understand that GMOs might have possibly good implications for them as people in society. For instance, do you like cheese? I love cheese. I'm a big cheese guy. The vast majority of cheese that's produced in the United States is done using a curdling agent, rennet, which is genetically modified. And the reason that we do this is because historically we got rennet from scraping the inner stomach lining of young baby cows. So rather than feeling bad and immoral for causing the premature death of an innocent little baby calf so that you could have your cheese, now instead we employ genetic engineering and you don't have to think about it. And then there's diabetes. Do you have type 1 diabetes? Do you know someone who has type 1 diabetes? Does type 1 diabetes run in your family? If that's so, you should be thanking biotechnology because, well, much like rennet used to be, we got all of our insulin from slaughtering animals, pulling out their insulin and injecting ourselves with it so that people with diabetes could live nice, long, happy lives. But we don't have to do that now because all of our insulin is grown using a genetically modified organism. Fantastic. So why is this even a thing? Why does anybody actually have any problem whatsoever with this entire situation? Well, the answer to that is actually pretty simple. It's all about propaganda. You see, it's all a matter of circumstance and control. I've said many, many times in this YouTube channel exactly how much I believe that the anti-GMO people, in and of themselves, are solely obsessed with trying to tell you how you should be afraid so that they can control your behavior and make you think what they want you to think. Some wonderful examples of people exactly like this can be easily pointed out. Some of the absolute wonderful pinnacle princes and princesses of pseudoscience, such as Jeffrey Smith, the leader of the Institute for Responsible Technology, a man so self-obsessed he actually thinks he can ohm his own ass off the ground. Then there is Vandana Shiva, a person who bathes herself in the absolute perfect example of a woman who fights for people who are deposed and poor and hungry and disadvantaged. And while she does so, racks in $40,000 per speaking engagement, of which none of it goes to starving Indian farmers. Or Stephanie Seneff, a woman who went to MIT and utilizes that to give some sort of credibility to her bullshit computer science degree leveraged belief that somehow GMOs, which have no molecular component inside of them to do so, are causing people to become autistic, thereby weaponizing the plight of people who are dealing with a sometimes devastatingly neurological condition just so she can push her own type of dogmatic principles. What a winner. Or the food babe, our favorite, beautiful hypocrite, who espouses all the dangers and warns us away from all these chemicals that could possibly do us harm, yet promotes all of these different products that have the exact same ingredients that she says will kill or harm us. And she has an odd fascination with chewing on yoga mats. So what sources do these people actually have? What type of information are they actually trying to extrapolate and use to get you to pay attention and to understand? What do they actually have that can kind of drum up this sort of emotional connection in you so that you will respond in the way that they want you to be afraid? Well, there are plenty of these studies, and I actually used to point them out individually, which ones were which. For instance, like I used to tackle the Seralini study, the incredibly badly written piece of trash bit of scientific literature in which a man tried to convince us that rats fed Roundup were going to get sick. That's interesting. Feeding rats weed killer might make them sick. Who would have guessed? But what's hilarious is that when he actually had his datasets presented, and if you read his datasets, his male rats live longer from drinking weed killer. That's a little weird. Or any of the other simple little ones showing problems with the gut bacteria of the pigs, or this over here seems to show that maybe autism is spawning from this, or this was this, and blah blah blah. The sum and total thing that you can draw from all of these examples and all of these different studies and papers and whatever is that they all share a very common modality. None of them are replicatable, none of them are verifiable, and none of them are done well. They never have a good sample size, they never have good controls, and in no way are they justifiably decent science. They're just bad. You don't conduct a scientific experiment to try and prove a theory right. You conduct a scientific experiment to prove a theory wrong. You put things to the test. You don't test to make sure you're right. The simple fact of the matter is there's never been a very good reason to have a problem with Monsanto. If you don't like Monsanto because they're a giant corporation, fine, whatever, that's totally cool. You can hate whatever corporations you want to. I am never going to judge you for it. But at the same time, we have to make sure that if we're going to hate Monsanto, if we're going to ignore the GMO thing, and if we're going to say that, no, I don't hate GMOs, I think GMOs have a place in life, but I don't like Monsanto. Let's examine that. The number one thing I always hear when people are trying to talk to me about Monsanto and how evil Monsanto is and how dastardly and how much like a supervillain who's trying to control the world Monsanto actually is, they always say the same exact thing. Monsanto sues farmers. Well, first and foremost, I have to say, I don't really understand why everybody paints farmers as some sort of victim in these types of things. I know lots of farmers, and some of them do very, very well, and some of them do very, very bad. And I don't know one single farmer who is a farmer because they want to be a good guy. They want to be a farmer because that's their passion, and they want to make money, and they want to support their family. So this idea of painting farmers as some sort of like inherent victimhood, some sort of princess locked in a tower being terrorized by the evil Dark Knight Monsanto. I don't get that. I don't get that. But all that aside, so let's see. So Monsanto sues farmers, yeah? Actually, no. That whole trope actually came about because of one guy who, very stupidly, cross-pollinated his own field in a very dumb way, and then tried to convince people that Monsanto had accidentally cross-pollinated their stuff into his, so he sued them. He sued Monsanto. And then the investigators went out and they were like, wow, you're an idiot. I cannot believe that you tried to pull this off on us because it was so easy for us to test this. Any person who has more of a brain cell than an 8th grade education could have seen that you totally screwed this up. And in response, Monsanto sued him. To my knowledge, and I've been looking at this for over 2.5 years, this is the only actual example of Monsanto suing a farmer. In fact, I scour it constantly, and I ask people, will you show me an example? And anytime anybody brings me anything, it's the same guy. Okay, so Monsanto in and of itself maybe doesn't sue farmers, but they're trying to poison us with their GMOs. You know, they're an agricultural company that used to be a pesticides company and used to produce DDT and with Vietnam and blah, 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 blah. So what? So what? I don't care. I don't care that they produced Agent Orange in the past. I don't give a shit. I know that if you take anything that they make right now, their Roundup Ready crops, or their Roundup, or their whatever, or this, or that, or anything that they actually produce, and you look under a microscope, there's no Agent Orange in it. If there was Agent Orange, or if there was any example of harm that was coming from a genetically modified organism, not even Monsanto, any genetically modified organism, the person who found that would win a Nobel Prize. Yet somehow when people have all this proof that there is harm, it's somehow magically suppressed by Monsanto. And this lends us to the other really amazing myth and idea about Monsanto, which makes no fucking sense whatsoever, is that they are somehow restraining us from understanding the truth. That there is a giant conspiracy out there that Monsanto, that barely even reaches into the Fortune 500 companies, has enough sway, enough pull, enough manipulation, enough money to silence every single university and science lab in the world. As opposed to the oil companies, which have, by a factor of 10, 20 or more, the revenue of Monsanto, somehow can't seem to silence those pesky scientists telling us how bad fossil fuels are. But here's the rub of the whole situation. This is the thing that really gets me when it comes down to talking about GMOs and Monsanto, or how people are actually viewing this type of thing. Most people who view this video right now are going to be the same type of people who are afforded the luxury that if they want to, they can go out and they can protest Monsanto. They're the type of people who live in a first world country with easy access to the internet, who are going to be able and enjoy the type of privilege that they can seek out whatever kind of information that they need to. These are the people who do not have to worry about where their next meal is going to come from. They don't have to worry about access to clean water or affordable health care. These are the types of people who will never know what it's like to have to hike 12 miles to a clinic hoping to God that somehow somebody's going to be able to save them from some basic ailment that we could just go down to a Walgreens and get a pill for. The true tragedy of the anti-GMO debate is that the people who are affected the most are not the people who are actually talking, it's the people who are the bit players. It's the people who are affected by the same rhetoric that we're espousing. That the conversation that we have is going to affect them, but they're not involved in it. This is most telling, especially in places like the Philippines, where a test crop was completely torn up because people were afraid of genetic engineering. And they were afraid because of the things that were said here in the United States. Not there, here. The things that we talk about freely because they don't matter to us. They're just a simple, interesting, over a cup of brandy type of conversation, has real ramifications and has real effects on people who live in the developing world. There are efforts to try and save people from death, blindness and death, that are stunted because we so frivolously talk about this without intellectual honesty. When we engage in this topic and we simply throw about a bunch of talking points, or I read upon this page on Google, it means nothing to us. But to people who are marginalized, to the farmers in India who people use their suicides as a weapon in a debate, to the children who die clutched to their mothers' bosoms in the Philippines and in Africa because they're so malnourished. These are the people who are actually affected by what we consider a casual conversation. And there is nothing more arrogant than somebody who exists in a first world nation, involved in their own privilege, trying to make dictations upon how people in the developing world should eat. Nothing in my mind could be more evil. So in many ways, I kind of wanted this video to be a little bit of my love letter, if you will, to the March Against Monsanto people who are all going to go out this Saturday and going to gather up in righteous indignation against that evil biotech company and rant and rave and spew all these magically stupid fucking things that they learned from Google University and never have to challenge themselves intellectually whatsoever. And I hope you have the most incredible sunshiny day that basks you in the warm glow while you walk around with your big, ignorant dicks hanging out. Bye!
Hey, this is Jeff's kid. If you like his videos, don't forget to hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more videos like it, and share with your friends.